Our top story tonight, 2 U.S. service members are dead after Iranian attacks in the Middle East. They were killed in action while defending against Iranian ballistic missile and drone attacks in Jordan. This as U.S. forces continue their strikes on Iran for 7 consecutive nights. The battle for the U.S. House is heating up. A top election forecaster says Democrats have the edge heading into the midterms, but Republicans still have a path to keep their majority. And at the World Cup, while England and France play a consolation match, Argentina and Spain get ready for their title game. NTD's Dave Martin joins us with a preview.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Arlene Richards. And now to the Middle East. U.S. Central Command announcing today that Iranian attacks have claimed the lives of 2 U.S. service members. They were killed in Jordan while responding to Iranian missile and drone attacks, and 1 service member remains missing. President Trump told News Nation that it's, quote, very sad. It's a very sad thing. We hate to see it happen. It's in service to our country. The president went on to emphasize that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The announcement comes as U.S. forces carried out a 7th consecutive night of strikes on Iranian targets. Retaliatory attacks continue across the region. Jordan saying it intercepted 10 Iranian missiles earlier today, while Kuwait says its air defenses responded to incoming Iranian drones. The 2 sides have traded strikes after Iran attacked several commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, despite a ceasefire reached last month. Meanwhile, Iran today saying it's pulling back from its commitments under the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding. That follows a warning from President Trump this week vowing tougher action if Tehran won't return to the negotiating table and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. From military action against Iran to newly declassified intelligence on China's election interference, plus a White House focus on countering left-wing extremism, it was another busy week in Washington. NTD's Daniel Monahan has your White House week in review.
President Trump declassifying intelligence he says shows Chinese interference in U.S. elections.
Starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history.
The president says the Senate should pass the Save America Act to strengthen election security.
How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat?
Tensions with Iran ramping up this week. American fighter jets, drones, and naval forces launching multiple strike operations against the Islamic Republic, hitting missile and drone facilities, naval assets, and coastal defense systems.
The Islamic Republic of Iran is not happy right now. Should have been done 47 years ago.
U.S. forces resuming a naval blockade targeting vessels traveling to and from Iranian ports and striking an oil tanker with Hellfire missiles after it ignored repeated warnings while attempting to sail toward Iran's Karg Island.
They don't like what we're doing, and they do want to settle. We'll find out whether or not we settle with them or we just finish it off.
President Trump discussing the conflict while hosting the Pennsylvania Defense and Innovation Summit at the U.S. Army War College. Joining him was Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, who praised the president's leadership at this critical juncture.
But we're at a step change moment. AI and frontier models, autonomy, quantum, space, hypersonics, you name it. If you're ahead now and you get ahead of the game, you're going to be way ahead.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio hosting a conference focused on the threat of left-wing political violence.
For far too long, however, our counterterrorism doctrine has had a blind spot when it comes to extremist violence from the political left.
Rubio also addressing the false promises of communism.
The world it envisions for all of us is small, flat, gray, leveled of all exception, drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul.
President Trump hosting Iraqi Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi at the White House, praising the Iraqi leader's relationship with Washington.
He's a young man. He's young and he's handsome, which I don't like. I'm not happy about it.
Trump saying the United States will be doing a lot of deals with Iraq.
We're going to create a lot of jobs for both countries, and we're going to be taking out a lot of oil.
And a sudden loss for Washington. Senator Lindsey Graham passing away late on Saturday.
He was a fantastic man. He was actually a great politician. He got along with almost everybody, and when he didn't get along, they knew it. He was tough.
South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster appointing Graham's sister to finish his Senate term, which ends in January. President Trump will be at the FIFA World Cup final between Spain and Argentina tomorrow.
His attendance will cap what has been the most watched, most secure, and most successful World Cup in American history.
And finally, Taiwan Semiconductor announced a $100 billion Arizona expansion, bringing its total U.S. investment to $265 billion, among the largest manufacturing commitments in U.S. history. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Control of the U.S. House is still up for grabs. The Cook Political Report, a top election forecaster, says Democrats have the edge heading into the midterms, but Republicans still have a path to keep their majority. A party needs 218 seats to control the House. Cook's latest ratings show Republicans favored in 212 seats, Democrats in 205, with 18 races considered toss-ups. That puts Republicans in a strong position. They need to win just 6 of those 18 competitive races. Democrats need 13 or would have to flip seats where Republicans currently have the advantage. Even so, Cook's outlook favors Democrats, with likely outcomes ranging from a narrow Republican hold at 221 seats to a Democratic majority at 228. Cook says the advantage comes down to political climate. Voters remain pessimistic about the economy and cost of living, which the report says is unlikely to improve for the GOP by November. This year marks the 27th anniversary of the deadly persecution of the meditation practice Falun Dafa, also known as Falun Gong. To raise awareness of another year of human rights violations carried out by the Chinese Communist Party, Falun Dafa practitioners and human rights advocates will hold a rally and march in our nation's capital. Watch our special coverage July 23rd, next Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, presented by NTD's Carrie Dunst and Stephania Cox. We'll take you to the historic Lincoln Memorial for the rally, give you an excellent view of the march, and bring in guests to unpack the Chinese regime's persecution campaign in China and around the world. We'll see you there. Coming up, NTD's Carrie Dunst breaks down President Trump's newly declassified documents on Chinese Communist Party influence efforts in the 2020 election, joined by a panel of national security experts. President Trump released newly declassified documents this week detailing Chinese Communist Party efforts to influence the 2020 election. The documents also suggest the Biden administration's intelligence community downplayed or removed those connections from presidential briefings. NTD's Carrie Dunst discussed this in a panel with former CIA operative Michael Waller and international military analyst Rick Fisher.
Michael, to kick things off, first I'd like to get your reactions to the president's direct address to the American people last night.
It was a fantastic presentation that he made, and the fact that it exposed not just what the Chinese communists are doing to subvert us, we should expect that. What it exposed was we have people in this country who are covering up for communist China, and we've allowed our election systems to get in such a way that the communists can just manipulate us at will, and our deep state system covers it up.
Yeah, shocking as you put it that way. Rick, I'd like to get your thoughts on the declassified documents.
Well, it's interesting how much of the mainstream media reporting today has been to downplay the president's release of these documents and to say that there's nothing here. We've already debunked this in 2020. Why review this? I would urge Americans to go to the White House website and read as many of these declassified documents as you can, because they do paint a very disturbing picture of China operating in an ecosystem in the United States of lots of both legal and questionable activities that 6 years ago prompted a justified level of concern. But 6 years later, when China is more powerful and throwing its weight all around the world, the future of our elections should be of a concern to all Americans.
Yeah, you used a very interesting word there, ecosystem, and I think that's a theme that we'll probably hit on as we continue. Michael, as a former CIA operative, can you shed some light on how this counterintelligence on China meddling is gathered, and then the effort to bury it, as the president has described, and as Rick used the word ecosystem? How does that all kind of coalesce together?
Well, any collection, so counterintelligence is to counter the hostile intelligence activities of foreign powers. So we're trying to counter this. So our counterintelligence people pick this up, but really we don't have a way of handling this. We don't have a real system to deal with the intelligence threats that countries like China present to us across society. If our enemies are able to get voter registration lists from practically every city and town in America, all the personal registration data of almost every voting citizen in the country, then that's a really serious breach where we haven't taken the preservation of our own system seriously. This is not something that you can fix with the FBI going around arresting people, although that's important. This has to be handled from the top with something like the SAVE Act, for crying out loud, which is to make sure that real people who are really eligible to vote are the ones who do cast the votes for our leaders. Otherwise, we're not protecting our constitutional system at all.
Yeah. And Rick, it's been a few years since that 2020 election. Has China been developing its means of election meddling since then? You alluded to it. Do you have any, as you read the tea leaves, are you understanding a bit more about what their capabilities could be at this point?
Well, I would strongly urge Americans to pay attention to what has been happening in Taiwan. In Taiwan, the opposition, liberal, if you could call it that, is more or less controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. They follow orders. They will conform to China's wishes if they ever are elected. And the Chinese are actively trying to support them, make them stronger, fight battles for them, undermine the elected Democratic Progressive Party that the Chinese Communist Party actually wants to make illegal. So by taking this example and looking at the United States, you could basically estimate that the Chinese Communist Party has a similar goal. It wants to empower a left party in the United States and eventually make illegal the conservative pro-freedom party.
Wow. And Michael, we understand that China has gathered all of this data. What could they do with that data?
Well, they could manipulate it in a number of ways. They could simply hire American companies to send out campaign material for and against certain candidates or for and against certain issues. They could perhaps hack into our electoral systems with voting machines that we know are flawed. Some of them, we have reports, were designed to have had invisible backdoors built into them for the specific purpose of altering votes during tabulation. So if China has the voting rules, they can do this, and they can hack into our own electoral systems and determine who gets elected and who doesn't.
Yeah, the documents do describe something of that nature happening in Venezuela with voting machines. Rick, what would you say to those who downplay China's influence in U.S. elections? As you described, the media response saying that this has all kind of been hashed, there's nothing new here. What would you say to that type of rhetoric?
Well, we're in a long-term contest with the Chinese Communist Party. They want to dominate the United States, and they want our defense of freedom to go away everywhere, including in our own country. So when the president accuses China of trying to manipulate, subvert, interfere in an American election, I suggest that Americans take this very seriously, go to the White House webpage, and read these documents for yourself.
Well, fascinating discussion on somewhat of a grim topic to end the week on, but we appreciate you both for joining and sharing your expertise. Michael Waller, Rick Fisher, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's been growing interest in democratic socialism, especially among younger voters and progressive politicians in the U.S. NTD's Don Ma discussed this trend with Mark Thornton, a senior fellow at the Mises Institute.
Do you believe socialism or democratic socialism, is it compatible with the United States and can lead to economic prosperity?
Well, no, it's not compatible with the American way of life traditionally understood. Unfortunately, America is becoming more and more socialist over time, but it's definitely not compatible with the way things should be. Now, of course, Democratic socialists have made great strides with Senator Bernie Sanders and AOC in the House of Representatives. President Barack Obama was pretty much a Democratic socialist, and now we have victories across America in the cities, New York City, Washington, D.C., the congressional seat in downtown Denver. And so these are the places we expect democratic socialism to do well. And you can kind of understand where those young voters are coming from, given the situation in the economy in America today.
Okay, so two things. Where do you think the young voters are coming from? What do they want in voting for Democratic Socialist? And why do you think it has gained traction? Do you think this interest, is it contained within these blue cities? Do you think, generally speaking, nationwide, is there interest for Democratic Socialism?
Well, there is a broadening out of interest in democratic socialism because progressive Democrats go along with certainly a lot of the policies of democratic socialists, and the acceptability of the term democratic socialism, or at least the policies that they advocate, is spreading throughout the Democratic Party and among independents. But where the strength of the Democratic Socialists are in terms of the number of votes is in the younger cohorts of the population, basically the middle class, young adults, college educated, and those sorts of things. They don't see the mainstream media, but they certainly understand that the nation is $40 trillion in debt. That's money that my generation spent that they're going to have to pay for. That Social Security is starting to run red ink, and that's going to explode over the next few years. That's benefits that my generation voted for it above the original program, and that the younger generation is going to have to pay for. And to get specific, of course, they're demanding what? Well, free health care, nationalized health care, national health insurance, and so forth. And they're demanding repayment of student loans. The price of higher education has gone exorbitant since my days in college. And so they're pointing to the things that my generation has caused and brought about in terms of the national debt, Social Security, and the high cost of education and the very high cost of healthcare that they're just finding out about now. And they're looking at it saying, this is a very raw deal, and I don't know what the solutions are to any of these things, and I'm not going to pay for them. So that's where they're coming from. That's what's irking them. That's what's causing them to be disgruntled. And so, the Democratic Socialists are great at sucking in these young people into a whole agenda, really, of failed policies.
So these younger voters, they're saying they want all these free things, but whatever happened to working for what you have? What about earning the things that you have? This has been a value since the founding of America, working for the things that you have and earning it.
Yes, that's right. And that's what I'd like to hope and believe. But this cohort that particularly backs the Democratic Socialists, they were raised in affluent homes. They were treated as children. They were in protected conditions compared to when I was growing up. They've never probably had a job in high school, and everything was given to them. They were in programs and sports all the time under direct supervision. And, so they live in a world where a lot of things have come to them for free, and they're used to consuming, free music and free internet and free movies and, everything across the board that's been given to them largely by corporations. Corporations are in the business of giving away free internet accounts and, all sorts of freebies out there. And that's really what they're used to. So they haven't faced a lot of individual responsibility, and their education, whether it's in the public school system or the private school system that largely mimics the public school system, they're not taught about capitalism. They're not taught about individual responsibility. They're not taught about thinking for themselves. They're in a classroom situation for 15 years where their teachers are basically telling them that it's really politicians that solve our problems, it's unions that solve our problems, it's technocrats that solve our problems, or generals, or social do-gooders. And then the capitalists, of course, are oppressing workers and throwing people out and selling dangerous products and doing all the bad thing. That's what the public school experience is that capitalism is bad, and social things, government, and so forth is what all good things come from. And so they've been brainwashed, essentially, and private schools are very similar. Even some homeschooling environments are very replicating of this process. They're not given a choice of what to learn. They're not, given individual responsibility. They don't work. They don't really see the real world, profit and loss, balancing your budget and all that stuff. So all that kind of stuff is completely foreign to them, whereas the original education in America was, nuts and bolts, science, math, history, legal aspects, and working too. I mean, everybody used to work as a kid, and that's no longer the case, particularly in affluent families where everything is bought and paid for, and where kids basically are on their parents' cell phone service and health insurance until they're 26 years of age. So, that is the generation, and you can't expect this generation, because it was no fault of their own. It wasn't their choice. That was just put in front of them. That they were forced to do that. And so we shouldn't be surprised if we look at reality, that's what we've done.
Yeah, and I think education is one of the key things that needs to be done better to educate younger people about socialism. But here's what I think one reason is why socialism doesn't work. And of course, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You're much more fluent on this subject than I am. But if everything is free, if everybody wants free things, then nobody has anything, because free things doesn't exist in this world. Somebody has to do work for the thing to exist. Food doesn't just materialize. People have to plant the seed and then harvest it in the fall. You're talking about the internet. Somebody had to create the internet. So if everybody wants free things, then we don't have anything.
Oh, that's absolutely right, Don. And it's the bottom line of socialism. F.A. Hayek said that you're only a socialist if you don't know economics. And Mayor Mandami quoted Hayek, who was Mises's student, and he said, well, we've proven that false. We've proven that we know better economics, and we know that we can fix the problems that the capitalists have caused in the background. But of course, socialism fails completely in both theory and in fact, or reality, or history. It always fails, and that's true whether it's the macro level of the Soviet economy or the micro level of government running grocery stores and other simple things to do. They're going to fail at all that. And, Hayek wrote in The Road to Serfdom in 1944 that this, middle-of-the-road socialism that democratic socialism offers us eventually becomes all-encompassing socialism with nationalized industries. And, he was looking at Germany, he was looking at France, in particular, he was looking at Great Britain, and then, of course, the United States after the Progressive Era. And all of those economies moved further and further towards socialism. And then, of course, the whole thing came tumbling down for those nations in the 1970s. Hayek was right. Socialism doesn't work. Mises said that pure socialism cannot calculate and ends in chaos and death. Hayek used the knowledge argument, which said that in the absence of any market information, that socialism would eventually tie itself in knots and break down completely. And that's without the incentive problem. Both of those professors analyze socialism without the incentive problem, which, of course, a lot of people, most people, and certainly history recognizes as a major, major problem of socialism, in that you don't have the proper incentives to produce like a capitalist. And you do have bad incentives to be lazy, to be derelict in your duty, and to do the wrong thing, to be corrupt and take bribes and all the rest. So socialism fails on at least 3 different theoretical levels. And of course, anytime it's been tried in the real world, it eventually breaks down as the process moves from the foot in the door socialism, which is democratic socialism, and it moves gradually towards totalitarian socialism, where you're told what you can buy, you're told what you can do, you're told the job you have to do, you're told to fight the war that we want, and all the rest. And then it finally crashes and breaks down like it did in the Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, and China. All 3 of those were massive failures where the economy couldn't keep up and was moving backwards rapidly. And fortunately, the people in those countries and the rulers of those countries recognized that the system couldn't work, and it only survived on Western knowledge and information and prices and subsidies from the West to the Soviet Union and to China and the Eastern Bloc countries, and that they couldn't make it on their own. And so they made an ideological choice to switch. And as a result of the downfall of socialism in China, it's become a major world power and a major economic power. India's standard of living has been rising significantly for many years as it's turned gradually towards capitalism. And of course, the Eastern Bloc countries, in particular Poland, is now a shining light in the world economy. They're making some good choices there, and the people are benefiting. And so, the record in both theory and practice is clear and straightforward across the board. There's no exceptions to this. And I'm not going to bring up a case like Cuba, which is where the people are suffering, but they're also suffering from outside interventionism. The reason their economy isn't working is socialism, but the reason the people are suffering so intensely is added to by foreign trade policies of the United States. So, you have to study each case individually and historically, but the record is perfectly clear.
Well said. I'll just reiterate, I'll just echo what you said. There are no exceptions to the failures of socialism. We can probably go on for another 30 minutes on this topic, but let's call it a day for today. Mark, it's been so good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Look forward to being back on.
We now have some breaking news. Central Command says the U.S. has launched new airstrikes against Iran at the direction of President Trump. CENTCOM says the strikes are aimed at weakening Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz and punishing Islamic Revolutionary Guard forces for attacks on U.S. service members in Jordan. And in foreign policy, the State Department is welcoming Cuban artist Luis Otero, calling him a courageous voice who stood against the Cuban regime's oppression. The department says he faced persecution and unjust imprisonment for defending artistic freedom and speaking out against government restrictions. They are also calling for the immediate release of the more than 700 unjustly detained political prisoners held by the regime. And coming up at the World Cup, while England and France play a consolation match, Argentina and Spain get ready for their title game. NTD's Dave Martin joins us with a preview. For your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, good to see you as always.
Good to see you, Arlene.
You know, I want to get right into soccer because the World Cup is the most exciting sport right now, and tomorrow is the championship game. But what's going on for today?
Well, today is the little-known consolation game between the two teams that lost in the semifinals. That's England and France. Let me tell you, it's been quite a match. England scored less than 3 minutes into this game. They had a seemingly insurmountable 4-0 lead at halftime. France has come out, gangbusters, though, in the second half. They've scored 3 early goals, making it a 4-3 game. 2 of those goals by Mbappe were about midway through the second half, so it's a game now. Of course, these are European rivals. This rivalry, though, has been one-sided, really, towards France. But like I said, tomorrow, the big one, Argentina versus Spain. Lionel Messi and company looking for their second straight World Cup title, with Spain standing in the way. Now, these two teams kind of come in with different sorts of momentum, I guess you could say, into this title game. Argentina has really been teetering. They had a couple of those great escape performances, if you want to say, against England and Egypt. Spain, meanwhile, they have been dominant this whole tournament. They've outscored their opponents by a total score of 13-1. So I am going to pick Spain, because I know you're going to ask me.
Yes, I am.
And that game, of course, we play tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, right near here in North Jersey.
All right, exciting stuff. Now we're going to stay with soccer for a little bit longer. We got to talk about the U.S. men's coach contract, which is supposed to expire at the end of the tournament. So are we expecting him to re-sign for the next World Cup?
Yeah, it's a possibility. We'll say that. Mauricio Pochettino, he's really remained mum on the situation. He did confirm U.S. Soccer made him an offer to continue. Whether he'll accept or not, he is not clear about that. He's a wanted man. I mean, this guy, he's got coaching experience in the prestigious European leagues. He did a great job with the U.S. men's team. I mean, they won 3 games in this World Cup. Just by that measure alone, it's their most successful World Cup. I will grant their 3 wins weren't all against top competition. Their loss to Belgium, meanwhile, at the end was not their greatest showing. But for the U.S., we were finally, full of hope for the first time in a while there. Now, Pochettino took over in September of 24. That was just 2 years after their not so great showing at the 2022 World Cup. I think they had 2 draws, a loss, and a win. This time, much better. So hopefully Pochettino stays, but like I said, it sounds like he's got plenty of offers on the table.
Oh, well, that's good for him. All right, so we're going to shift gears to golf. Today was round 3 of the British Open. Conditions have been ideal, leading to several record scores.
Yeah, on Friday, 2 players there tied the major championship record by scoring a 62 in one round at a major. Now, that was Australian Lucas Herbert and American Sam Burns. That score was tied again today, this time by New Zealand's Ryan Fox, who scored the 62. So 8 golfers have ever shot a 62 in one round of a major. 3 of them have been in the past 2 days at the British Open. Pretty amazing. Like you said, conditions have been ideal. This is one of those links courses right on the shore. Usually it's very windy, but that wind has really died down in the last 48 hours. Players are definitely taking full advantage of it. So right now, those three players are pretty much very high on the leaderboard. Burns is in first place, 10 under par for the tournament. Fox tied for second at 8 under. Herbert tied for fourth at 7 under. And we've got the final round coming up tomorrow.
Oh, but I don't know. We got soccer too. It's a little toss up there. All right, so we're going to move to baseball news. Two of the game's biggest stars, that's Aaron Judge of the Yankees and Dodgers' Shohei Ohtani, missed Tuesday's All-Star games, both of them with injuries. So what's the status?
Well, for Judge, he's still dealing with a stress fracture in one of his ribs. He really can't even work out. They reevaluated him over the All-Star break. It's still not good enough for him to work out. He's indefinitely silent. Ohtani, meanwhile, he's dealing with discomfort in his knee. He's been able to hit, but he hasn't been able to pitch. He is still scheduled to pitch Wednesday, but he hasn't pitched since July 3rd, so they're trying to take it easy with him. But anyway, the Dodgers and Yankees are playing a series right now at the Bronx. They play Game 2 in their series at 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Dodgers leading their division, Yankees 2.5 behind in their division. So both teams still doing well despite having injuries to their star players.
Can I ask you who's going to win that one?
Well, I'm going to go with the Dodgers, all right? It's a total coin flip.
All right, okay. Flip the coin. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Arlene.
Coming up, it's an epic opening for the Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's latest is on track for the biggest live-action debut of the year. Christopher Nolan has another blockbuster on his hands. The Odyssey is smashing box office expectations and is on pace for the biggest live-action opening of the year. The film is projected to earn between $120 million domestically this weekend after bringing in $50 million on Friday, including previews. If those numbers hold, it will become the biggest live-action opening of 2026 and the biggest opening weekend of Matt Damon's career in a leading role. Fans are also seeking out the premium experience. IMAX and other large-format theaters account for more than half of all ticket sales, with many showings already sold out, or nearly full. Industry analysts expect those premium screens to stay packed for weeks. The owner of a viral Bay Area restaurant says many people are supporting his policy that parents should be liable for damages caused by misbehaving kids. The owner is planning on opening a new restaurant as well. NTD's David Lamb has the story.
You would think a policy on parental responsibility would be unappetizing in a restaurant, but that's not the case for Shohei, a restaurant serving authentic Chinese cuisine to patrons in the San Francisco Bay Area.
We've protected the environment for everybody. We've said, hey, by coming here, you have to respect other guests. And we've actually encouraged more families to come. So Shohei will always be a family-friendly restaurant, and we really hope to keep it that way.
Located in Foster City, Shohei's customers actually appreciate the honesty and transparency, and the restaurant went viral last month. Yo-Yo Shohei, a Michelin-awarded restaurateur and owner of 2 restaurants, tells NTD his business even received a letter of appreciation from someone in Wisconsin. One of his restaurants, Shohei or House of Shohei, has a family-friendly atmosphere.
It's a random name that we came up with. Shohei means house of in French, so it's pronounced Shohei. And I just thought it'd be like a good way to let people know this is like it's going to be a home-style restaurant, somewhere where when you're coming into my home. So we call it Shohei. Yeah.
After many incidents of misbehaving children at his business, last year the restaurant let patrons know that they'd be responsible for paying for damages caused by unruly kids.
We've seen children running around with knives. We've seen children running around in front of my servers who are holding big bowls of hot soup or hot fish, things like that. And it's very dangerous for the kids. We've seen kids climb on top of tables. We've seen parents changing their child's diaper on the communal seating here in front of other guests.
There's a lot of kids with a lot of energy. They need to run around, right? My son was like that, right? You gotta let him run around. There are plenty of restaurants that are designed for kids to run around. So you have, as a parent, it's your responsibility to figure out the appropriate place to take your kids.
Once you become parents, you have the responsibility. It's not a school job or other people how they teaching. It's your job. It's being a parent, right? And the manner of being outside with the public, how you deal with others. It's actually coming to restaurant is perfect place to learn how to train your kids grow up properly.
Shohei prides himself on the hospitality, cleanliness, and atmosphere of his restaurants, which include communal-style benches.
The amount of incidents that we've seen with children has just dropped off a cliff. Yeah, we've seen almost no like rowdy children since then. Parents have really stepped up and controlled their children. So we know it's working. We know that parents are reading that. We know that parents are reacting to it. And we know that they're taking just that extra step to control their children. And we appreciate it. We really do.
Shohei plans on opening a new restaurant in the next month or so in Mountain View. Though its name is still a secret, he says it will carry on the same transparent policies and service as Shohei. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
A fight for the hearts, minds, and lives of innocent children. Mercedes Schlapp has made it her mission to combat human trafficking, advocating for legislative change at the state and federal level. She's a senior fellow at the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC. Hear her story featured in the Heroes Wanted campaign, honoring those working to stop human trafficking. NTD Television and the Epoch Times are proud partners of the campaign.
The average age of a child that's being trafficked right now is 11 years old. And whenever I hear that number, and the mere fact that it is the United States, that we are the primary consumers of what you would see content coming out of inappropriate content of children being abused or raped from across the globe, is something that we cannot tolerate as a society. This is Mercedes Schlapp. I am a senior fellow. For these survivors. And now we are in our 4th year of the CPAC Center for Combating Human Trafficking as the vehicle, as the platform to make this into one of the most important issues that we discuss on the CPAC stage every year, not only here in the United States, but across the globe, and have been incredibly successful in changing policy, not only at the federal level, but at the state level as well.
Human trafficking across our country.
We were intricately involved in working with members of the House and Senate to pass the Trafficking Survivors Relief Act, which was a bipartisan bill, which would basically expunge these records of people that were involved as human trafficking victims, and in essence, where they would have been put in a situation where they would have been prosecuted because they were with their pimp or their human trafficker, and they would get charged with felony charges. And so hence there was no justice for these victims. We've also been involved in several legislative wins in places like Texas, Arkansas, Georgia, and we work closely with different governors. We work very closely with nonprofit organizations, with faith-based organizations like Letitia's House, which they provide assistance to survivors, and have worked with the Department of Justice to ensure that the appropriate funding and resources are going to the right places. I always say that the issue of anti-human trafficking is one that is not Democrat or Republican. It is about humanity. It is about protecting the most vulnerable in our society. So CPAC is hosting its 4th annual International Summit Against Human Trafficking. We bring in partners from all over the globe. We share best practices. We work with the law enforcement, with faith-based organizations, with policymakers to help determine how we can come together, have a unified agenda that then we can move forward and implement at the state and federal level, as well as the international level. And you can join us in this movement.
Human trafficking breaks human beings.
To end human trafficking, go to cpac.org.
My name is Rosy Orozco, a former congresswoman from Mexico who fought against the cartels and human trafficking. This year, we are launching the Heroes Wanted campaign, shining a light on extraordinary people fighting in the front lines.
So go to kaleido.charity/heroeswanted, watch their stories to help amplify their impact, and vote for the hero who inspires you the most.
And that's the news for this evening. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next Saturday evening.